I was like, did you get the 256 or what gig did you get?
I got the 256.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah. I don't use that much, but I don't know. Like, who knows what videos I might be taking later.
Yeah, I know that's right. I know that's right. I was like, I'm going to Long Island.
Well, we got I got a new camera, y'all.
I know that's right.
All of a sudden, we see an OnlyFans pop up.
It's like, look at that crystal clear, bitch. Crystal clear. You see it. You see the veins and everything.
Right. Not the veins. Oh, my goodness.
Not the veins. The veins. Oh, no.
The veins.
No. How do you say her name? Is it Asya Branch?
Asia.
Mm-hmm. Look, to be fair, I said the same thing.
Like
To be fair, I thought it was Asya too, because S-Y-Sigh, you know, like.
How is it spelled?
Asya.
Oh, yeah, I would have said the same thing. But also now I want to pronounce Asia just like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that.
Oh, what continent or where you going? Asya.
Hey, aunties. This is Maya from the Queer Asian Social Club and Queer Asian Podcast Club. What's brewing today?
Introducing Auntie Juneshine.
Ask your aunties. No.
And the Masters Major Golf Tournament. So get your cups ready for Minoritea Report.
Well, hello, ladies. How's everyone doing tonight?
Hey.
What's that?
Hi.
What's that? I haven't done that since like June.
I was on a Zoom call today, and my coworkers didn't even know what that was.
How old are they?
That's true.
Come on, Blink.
It's my first question.
Oh no.
They're like, ooh, okay, damn.
I know the Mac event this week for Apple, they brought back the PC guy. Remember the
Yeah.
People on Twitter were like, who the hell is this guy? Or a lot of them knew just because they're Apple heads and things like that. But some people were like, wait, who is this dude? I'm like, oh no.
We part of that crew. We part of that crew.
What happened?
Yep.
Literally that ad, like when I saw that on Twitter, I was like, oh, do I need to buy a new laptop? And it was like the whole thought process was like, my computer keeps telling me I don't have enough storage. So should I try cleaning that up or get a new laptop?
Just spend $2,000 on a new laptop.
So apparently the PC guy was like, Maya, this is your time. This is your time to spend $2,000
like,
that no one has.
Right.
Yeah. In a pandemic.
I know. Exactly. Like, we're not going to have one, not two, but we're going to have 3 events for you to spend some coins.
Right.
I tried to watch it and I was like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. An M1 chip? What the what? I don't have a Mac. I don't do anything with Mac to begin with. So I was just like, why am I watching this at this point? I was like, then I get my money. Like,
I'm not going to get this generation. I'm going to wait. Like, mine is a 2016, so it's still doing all right. It starts to slow down a little bit, but I'm going to wait till that second generation because Apple has been known for that first generation to have some problems here and there. So,
yeah.
So I'm
like, that's actually a very good point.
Yeah, I have my laptop. I have a MacBook Air, and I think mine is a 2013. So she's been like on her last leg, and Adam's is I think a 2011. I want to say, and it's like a brick. I mean, you pick that thing up. You know, it's like it's one of those things. Like at least mine is one of those ones where you can like slide it underneath the table to even the table out if it's a little wobbly. And his is like a door stopper. You just put it on the ground, and it raises so high that it stops the door from being able to move. Like that thing is a brick. So we're gonna be. Those will be our little like Christmas gifts this year. We'll just both upgrade to new laptops, and that'll set us right for the next 5 or 6 years. Not the next decade. Things don't last that long.
Well, community, if you heard a fourth voice this week, we have a special guest. We will let her introduce her auntie name. I know it. I saw it in the email. Usually I try not to look in the email because I like to be surprised. But what is your auntie name?
My auntie name is Auntie Juneshine because I am just a girl from Southern California that's completely obsessed with hard kombucha. Oh. 1, because it's delicious. 2, because it does not hurt my tummy. 3, Juneshine. Like, I'm literally Juneshine. I'm a part of the cult at this point. Like, there was a point in the pandemic where I was, like, paying too much money to ship it from San Diego to me in Philadelphia before they, like, had it available in Jersey. So, like, I'm fully... Anyways, I love it. Juneshine sponsor me. I do have a tattoo that refers to it. I'm just like all in and just
she's invested.
She's all
invested.
For real.
So I'm
just a girl.
So help me to help. I may be like the only one who's never heard of Juneshine because I never heard of it. So okay, so for all of us ignoramuses out here who aren't hip to the game, tell us what Juneshine is. Like, because in my mind, I'm thinking it's like, like moonshine,
some fun moonshine. Yeah,
in June.
They made their moonshine in June.
That's a little less hard.
Last year all year. Last year all year. We waited for that Juneshine release.
Right, that's a special month. That was a very
seasonal.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Oh my god, if it was moonshine I would just be hammered 24/7. Which I don't drink that much, but pandemic happened. It's literally just kombucha that was like brewed longer, so it has a high alcohol content. So it has like 6% alcohol in it, so it's like a beer. But because it's kombucha, it has like all of these probiotics in it, so you don't get like the heartburn, like acid reflux that you can get with other alcohol. And then it just tastes really good because it's kind of like cidery. So like fruity, cidery. I mainly only drink it because it doesn't hurt my tummy and it tastes good. And I'm like, I need alcohol that does not hurt me, even though alcohol by definition hurts me, so it's fine.
I was literally trying to figure it out in my head because, kombucha is fermented. And then of course, alcohol is fermented. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. There's a double fermentation going on here. And I did not get it. So thank you for explaining that. Is it before? Have I had kombucha? Yeah. Oh yeah, we've got a whole refrigerator full of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm like really picky with it because some of them are like more. The probiotic content is a lot in some of them, and I don't like the goop. Like when it coagulates. Yes, right, the load, the load. Like that, I don't like that, but yeah, I like booch.
That means it's like alive and working. That's when you know you got the good one. Because if you don't see that, then you're like, let me go put that back. That's
I'm with you, Dawon. That's why I don't like drinking it too.
Moonshine does not have it, so there's that. Also,
what'd you say?
Juneshine doesn't have that like mother, which is great because I also am freaked out by it. Also, to complete me just fully advertising for Juneshine on this podcast, it is available like essentially all over the United States at this point, except for fucking Pennsylvania because the Commonwealth hates alcohol and I hate it.
Yeah. Pennsylvania just passed a law, I think 4 years ago. It was a couple years ago because I lived in Pennsylvania for a year and a half. And it was during that time that they passed the law that allowed you to be able to buy, because you could only buy wine at a winery, you can only buy beer at a beer distillery, and you could only buy spirits at a, like a wine and spirits place, but you couldn't buy them together. So I was used to, and came from Chicago, et cetera. Like you could literally go to the grocery store and buy everything that you need, including all the wine and liquors and everything else. and you literally had to make 4 different like shopping trips on a Sunday, get your groceries, get your wine, get your beer, get your spirits, and, then you go home. So yeah, they're way behind the times.
And they're like, can you get that? Like, I'm trying to think, what's the store? Like Wegmans or Giant Eagle out there?
Yeah. I mean, kombucha you can get anywhere because it's not alcoholic, but
well, if it's got the 6% alcohol in it, though.
Yeah, I have to drive to Jersey. I go to Camden to get Juneshine because it's not sold here, and it's a very expensive trip over the Ben Franklin Bridge. There's like a $5 toll. I'm very dedicated to everything. I like to say that I'm just a queer white woman of color, and I feel like my obsession with Juneshine really like solidies that identity for me.
She said that took me out.
I love it. I'm just a queer white woman of color. I'm so here for that. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I coined a phrase at work this week with a lot of my HR colleagues called melanin presenting. because we're, part of my job is to really invest in underrepresented minorities within our organization, the Latinx and Black African-American communities. And so I was trying to be politically correct in talking about an individual that participated in an event that was not presenting Blackness. So I coined the phrase of melanin presenting. So you can have that.
I really enjoy that.
Right.
But Maya, you come from the Queer Asian Podcast Club and the Queer Asian Social Club. What came first? And how did you start this, and what made you want to start that?
Ooh, yeah. So I guess it's kind of like a 3-part story, maybe. Okay. But so the Queer Asian Social Club came first, and it was formerly known as the Gaysian Project, with that little, play on words. Yeah. And it was fun, I always love a good pun. But it was one of those things where it was like, okay, I get it. And I don't always identify as being Gaysian. And Gaysian tends to kind of be used by more East Asian, cis men. And so because of that, tradition of the term, it didn't always feel as inclusive, even though we were trying to be as inclusive as possible. So about a year ago, we decided to go through a rebrand and go to the Queer Asian Social Club because it was just a lot more inclusive. It kind of emphasized what we were trying to go for in terms of creating a community that wasn't, defined by very specific activism, and it was more so a space where people could just come and hang out and be who they are and not feel pressured to engage in organizing if they don't feel like it. They could come to a brunch and just get drunk, just kind of having that. Yeah. But yeah, it essentially all started from this, my own frustration with not really knowing where my community was. So I came out in undergrad and had a pretty close-knit group of friends. And I never felt the need for community because I was just still going through the baby gay phase and figuring out myself. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out me before I understand community. But once I graduated and was out in the world, had to figure out what friends are, how do you make friends as an adult? It's impossible. But yeah, I kind of going through that whole process, I was just oh, I don't know where my community is. Like, where do I go when there isn't like a queer resource center in the world to be able to find other queer folks?
Right.
And at the time I was living in LA, and so I'd go to West Hollywood all the time, but WeHo is very white.
Yes.
And
Say
it's
what?
also
No.
Shocking.
it's like news, breaking news.
Right.
Key race alert. Key race alert.
Right.
But yeah, it was like super white. Like I had a ton of fun, but you know, white, not a lot of like femme kind of spaces. And so I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I love hanging out with my boys, but like truly I feel out of place. Also, I'm very horny, would like to kiss someone at some point.
That works.
It's midnight somewhere. Come on, the clock is
Yeah,
ticking.
right? Like, come on, where are you?
Right.
But yeah, so that, I don't know, it kind of like intensified a bit more because it, you know, it was kind of like the lead up to the 2016 election. So like vitriol was like that much more vibrant to like any marginalized community. And then when you're like at the intersection of several and you're like, yes, I love to be a person of color, also queer, when everybody is like, let's kill them all. I was just like, I don't know where to go. Like, I feel like I just need to figure out how my, you know, like Indian identity intersects with my queer identity, intersects with my American identity. Like what, I don't even know where to go or how to even process any of these things. And I know for me, it was kind of more, I guess, emphasized by all of the kind of xenophobic Islamophobia stuff that was like, you know, a cornerstone of I guess, the past however many years. And even though, like, my family is from India and we're not Islamic, we're Hindu, but, like, I don't know, I'm sure you guys may have encountered that when racists are racist, they don't really care what type of what you are.
No,
they're just like,
bunch them all.
nah. Yeah, they're, like, bad. So, like, I felt that a lot, and it was also, like, a lot of fear for, like, the male, you know, family members who just looked more brown and male and therefore terrorists. So I was like, where can I go to, like, understand these things? Like, I kept trying to go into Asian spaces, but, you know, the majority of Asian spaces that I had been in or experienced in California had been more East Asian dominated. So I was like, wait, do I belong here? Like, I don't see any South Asian folks. And so it didn't really feel like a space for me.
Which is interesting, even in like LA, a lot of people think is so diverse that there's still that issue and that struggle to find those communities.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, like, I'm sure we can get into this too, but like, it's been interesting kind of moving from the West Coast to the East Coast and seeing how like marginalized communities kind of like organize in like the coastal differences has been super interesting. But yeah, so you know, like the Asian spaces didn't feel like a perfect fit. I had then at that time moved down to San Diego, and because I was playing golf professionally, and so I was trying to like tap in to like the queer community in San Diego, which was a lot more diverse. There was like a lot of POC spaces. However, those POC spaces tended to be like more dominated by, and understandably so, Latinx and Black communities. And because of like the prevailing kind of model minority stereotypes against Asian folks and Asian communities, it always felt as if going into that space, I was taking up space. You know, like there was this kind of like, I was like, I am a person of color and there's this like layer to it. And I, you know, this is a very important space and I don't want to take away from that. And I'm also trying to figure out how to kind of like be here. So that kind of like desire to find community was what really drove finding and founding the Queer Asian Social Club. And yeah, it kind of, I guess to make a long story short, ended up going to a convention where we did a panel on queer Asian representation in the media, highlighting the fact that like for queer POC of any marginalized identity, not a lot of representation. It's not there. And for me, it was very much like, you know, that you can't be what you can't see. And so it's like, if we are to have more visibility, no matter if it's in the media or just kind of like people wearing t-shirts around, then that it's kind of like emphasizes that there is a community, that there's a space for us to kind of belong in. And so I founded the Queer Asian Social Club as a way to kind of build community through visibility and like a space to, you know, like show the faces of like the queer Asian diaspora and how queerness looks like so many things, Asianness looks like so many things. And like the podcast was an extension of that, to have just conversations about the queer Asian experience. Okay. But it's truly just like a space to kind of like exist and be seen and heard, and to like see others and hear others as well.
Talk to us a little bit about the nomenclature of queer.
Yeah. So my partner and I like talk about this all the time, because she really doesn't like the term queer, and I really identify with the term queer. And I know that's like not uncommon in the larger LGBTQ community, because it's like, obviously there is like, you know, the negative medical connotations with queer from like, you know, like the olden days. I was about to say olden days. It's not that long ago.
But they were still trying to treat queerness with, you know, like electroshock therapy as a disease. So that's,
I know, like
in the olden days
that have like a very negative connotation to that word, because it was placed upon them to be negative, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like maybe our generation, and maybe a little younger, it's kind of almost become the new gay. It's kind of taken maybe a multifaceted approach to the LGBTQIA plus community in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a big reason why I'm so drawn to the term and like identifying as a queer woman, because, you know, kind of like the reclamation of it. I also think kind of like going back to, I guess, the etymology or the use of the word originally, it just means something that's other. And I'm like a huge nerd, so of course I did queer theory in undergrad. But I, you know, like I love the way that like it kind of represents something that is outside of the norm, that is almost like unquantifiable. And so for me, like, I don't know, I love the way that it embraces fluidity, because it's like, you know, for me, my gender, I know my gender identity is a woman. However, my gender presentation definitely changes day to day. You know, like I'm a jock, so I like when I'm wearing workout clothes, it's like definitely a bit more you know, and I love that there's space for that. And then I also love how there's space for like kind of like this Kinsey scale of sexuality, because it's like, yeah, like, you know, I love fucking women. Like, women are beautiful and amazing and wonderful. And also, I would like Nick Jonas to rail me. So it's like...
Me too.
I was not ready.
But yeah, so
that
like,
might be the clip of the week.
Found it.
But yeah, so I mean, for me, I just like love the fluidity that it embraces. And I think also as an Asian person in the United States, kind of like our culture is queer from Western culture, and that it's, you know, different. And it's, you know, not in the way that like kind of Islamic culture, Jewish culture? Yeah, that's the right way to say it. Jewish culture and Christian culture kind of like, there is similarities and touch points. Kind of Hinduism and Buddhism are a little bit different from that. And so like the culture surrounding them feel a little bit different. And so I kind of love how like queer for me embraces all of those categories and is a celebration. But then also
what is your partner's like, I guess,
yeah.
Like what does she kind of not enjoy about that word then?
Yeah, so I think for her, something that we've talked about is how in, you know, queer and political activism, as it's grown over the past 4 years, a lot of folks who are more radical activists, to the point where they have been, like there have been instances in which some organizers or activists have been a little bit exclusive in their radical nature, have identified as queer and have used it as kind of kind of like a battle cry, in a way that doesn't feel very inclusive to her and, to me in certain ways as well. And that's like no shade to those activists at all.
Yeah.
I think radicalism is like really important to any social movement. Like it's kind of like you need both sides of the coin for like change. And it's also like there are certain points in any movement, especially when you're fighting so desperately for change, like we all have, not even just for the past 4 years, but like for fucking ever, that it can, like the anger and the determination can amount to kind of some instances of exclusivity, even though they're super understandable. It's like I get the discomfort that like some folks can have. Like even me, like I can sometimes be like, wait, I'm tired. I'm sorry, I don't know the right terminology. Like I'll Google it, I promise.
That's a valid statement, because they're, like as much as you try to be inclusive and try to learn and try to grow and things like that, there are going to be those moments of slip-ups, of maybe ignorance, honestly, and that you just don't know that even us within the community still have some blind spots that we need to be taught. And as long as you're open to it, I think that's fine. But you still find some people that are just like, oh, this is the way I am, bah humbug. That's when it kind of becomes a little trouble.
Yeah.
But if you show that, oh, you know what, my bad, I didn't mean to misspeak like that, I didn't mean anything like that, teach me, I'm willing to grow, we can move on then, kind of deal.
Yeah, and then we talked about like a couple weeks ago, like on the podcast, like towards the end, we talked about I admitted like I was addressing a group of people, and I said,
"Oh yeah,"
I said, "Hey guys," and I was like, "Oh my god, that's not." And no one like they didn't call me out on it, but because I'm proactively trying to be correct, that's when I realized I was like, oh, I need to start doing this and stop waiting for someone to correct me that I'm not being correct. Like
there are times you're like, damn, I'm just tired. Hold on. I ain't got the energy today. Like, I'll try better tomorrow, but today, my bad.
Growth is hard, though. I mean, growth is hard because there are things that are just baked into like every aspect of our lives, and it's so ingrained within us that you think about things like language. Like when we say "you guys," like I say that all the time, and it's just part of. For me, it's part of like growing up. That's just what people say to reference a lot of people in a room, but it's very masculine presenting language, and to unlearn that habit, it's really tough because you don't always know when it's going to pop up. It's one thing when like you can script out everything that you're going to say. And even then there may be things that'll creep in and it's like, oh, I have a blind spot. Didn't know that. But when you're having conversations, it becomes really tough. Yeah.
I feel like just by virtue of, I don't know if it's the same for y'all, but like just by virtue of doing a podcast, it's made me so much more aware of like the language that I use. And it's because I'm the same way. I say you guys and dude like all the time, and I don't think of them as like gendered.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I totally understand how they actually are gendered. But like ever since kind of like doing a podcast or like, being so much more enmeshed in like queer spaces, I'm like, oh, like kind of just more aware. But it's hard because I'm just like, I just say guys all the time. It's like, I just like, yo, I'm from SoCal. I don't know if that was a horrible impression of myself, but like, just like.
Earlier you had mentioned there's like distinct differences between West Coast and East Coast within queer spaces. What have you identified are like the big ones that you're like, whoa, this is totally different?
Yeah. So, I mean, like the majority of the work, or I guess the spaces that I had been in for queer spaces and like organizing spaces have been like in Southern California. And so kind of, which I love Southern California, but one of the differences or one of the things that I've noticed a lot has been the influence, even though it's super subtle, of the film industry on like the ways in which organizing kind of occurs. So there's kind of like this undercurrent of clout, I guess, for like lack of a better term. And I used to work in the film industry as well, so I'm totally like party to that as well. And to a lot of degrees, I still am. But like there is kind of like this undercurrent of that. Whereas here, like I guess specifically in Philadelphia, I've noticed this like really, I mean, like Philadelphia is full of like amazing activists, but like there's this kind of, you know, like we're doing it because it's good. Like there isn't this concern about clout. And I don't think that clout is necessarily a bad thing, but it does kind of make the spaces feel a little bit different. And it is really cool to like go, it does feel a little bit more accessible in a way where you're just like, no, like I want to do this thing. And like, I don't know anything, you know, about it, but like, you know, I believe in it. I'm passionate about the cause, and there tends to be more space for that here in ways that aren't always accessible in my experience. Like, this is totally just in my experience as well. But yeah.
That's interesting. Like, it makes sense that you're saying it, but I guess I've never even thought about it that way, in that a lot of people might be doing it to gain something other than just the foundation of making something right, you know?
Yeah, I think it's also kind of like how, I mean, I guess it's like the whole social media effect, right? Because it's like not that folks are trying to get clout for themselves, but they do recognize the value of having a big following, or of getting, you know, like, you know, this personality to rep your brand or to, you know, kind of like support you. And because of like the, you know, closeness of Hollywood and like all of those people in Southern California, it does kind of like have that bigger effect. Whereas like out here, people are just like, wait, like we just want to make cool art. Like there's these really cool like streetwear designers in Philly. They're not queer, which is like the only downside, but they're a bunch of like POC designers that one is called P's and Q's, and then the other one is called Para Todo. And they're both like, you know, that really dope, like streetwear design, like really awesome stuff. I've bought too many of their clothes, but their mission is to give back to the community. So like everything that they make, like kind of goes directly back into the Philly community. They made a whole bunch of shirts this summer kind of around the Black Lives Matter movement and around police brutality that directly went to several of the organizations that, you know, like the bail funds, as well as the larger kind of like legal efforts like from NAACP and ACLU and things like that. They also did this really cool shirt a couple weeks ago with one of the WNBA stars who was like really speaking out about voting. And so the shirt was to kind of like advocate for people to vote and to kind of like, you know, represent her and give her a platform. And it's all just because like they want to give back to the community. They're like, this community built us, we want to give back to it. Right. And that's something that feels so starkly different from what I've experienced in SoCal, where it's just like, dope, you know, it's not necessarily art for art. It becomes art for some extra, essentially. Yeah.
That's how it was that's what it felt like this past summer, especially during a lot of like the protests out here, like in the Pacific Northwest. Like a lot of people didn't see, like on the news, that majority of the people that were out here in Seattle and Portland are white people. Like the white people are like the ones in the front line. And it was hard to tell like when it was genuine and when it was performative, you know, and then you like start seeing all these businesses, and I felt this way like about Pride Month, you know, like when all these businesses start throwing out rainbow stuff, and it's like, are you really down, or are you just because this is what's happening right now? You trying to be cool, you know?
Prophetizing.
Yeah, you know, so I appreciate that part about Philly. I don't know. I haven't been to Philly. You know, Philly has been on my shit list. Because the Minnesota Vikings went out there and played, and they treated the Vikings. And no, hold on. The people out there in Philly treated the Viking fans like shit. They were throwing full ass beer cans at them, like we're throwing, we're like like busting out
Philly
cars
people are
and shit like that. Like, yeah. So Philly got on my bad side after that day. But it was cool though because they came to Minnesota because they went to the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl was in Minnesota. And everybody who had an Airbnb that was from Philly, everyone said, nope, we're canceling your Airbnbs. So,
that's amazing.
Oh yeah, Minnesota was like, fuck y'all too. We got you. We see you. We see each other.
Honestly, the Philly fans, like I'm a huge sports person in that I love to play sports, and then I will only watch golf and or soccer. But like I have a couple jerseys from like just I did like a Pride Night event for the LA Angels, and like so these random jerseys that I just have from SoCal. But I am so terrified of sports fans in Philly that I refuse to like wear any of them because I'm like, you guys are crazy. Like, I'm so glad that you guys, like, Philly voted blue and like won Pennsylvania for us. Like, love that.
That part.
People are batshit insane. And I'm just like, I don't identify with sports at all in Philadelphia.
That is too funny. So, like, you're in Philly because you're now in law school. So, like, you start your career as a let's back it even further back.
Okay.
So, you grew up playing golf, went to college to golf, right?
Yeah.
Became a professional golfer, and now you're in law school.
Yep.
Houseway.
So like another part of my identity is that I'm just a retired 60-year-old white man. And that is the progression of my life. Just progressively becoming
I'm every
white.
woman.
Exactly.
It's all in me. Anything you want done, baby.
I'm doing it as a 6-year-old white man.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, like, kind of did not expect to be here. It was like a whole bunch of, like that. I always think about this, like, what would younger me have would say about the progression of my life to this point? And she would just be like, yeah, what? I wanted to be a neurosurgeon in space. You are not that. But yeah, no, I mean, like, golf has always been a huge part of my life. Like at first it was just like my parents being like, go play a bunch of sports so that you have something to do. I loved all of them because I wanted to be like my older cousins who were both like huge sports guys. And then they were like, okay, choose one because you need to leverage that for college. And I was like, okay, golf because I do not have to run. Which was an interesting decision because golf is like one of the most frustrating and hardest sports.
Absolutely.
I won't mess with it. I won't even mess with it.
I get pissed off every single time.
Same. It doesn't go away.
And and the funny thing, I thought I would be good at it because I played baseball. I'm like, oh, hand-eye coordination, a bitch got this. Hand-eye coordination down there? Nah, ain't for me.
It's the devil's sport.
No.
But yeah, so I kind of chose golf, took that to college, fell in love with the sport even more when I was an undergrad because I had really great teammates that kind of just reminded me that you play a sport because of the love of the game, because it's fun. Then I got really good because I started loving the game. And then I was like, wait, I want to see how far I can take this. Like, I don't want to have any regrets in my life. And, you know, I was very lucky to have, and am very lucky to have, really supportive parents. So to be able to be like, hi, so I want to go play professionally now. And they were like, yeah, let's do it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I did that. And it was, you know, like, I don't regret the experience. However, it was so different than playing like junior golf or college golf. And then I also started playing during I turned pro in 2015. So literally like the lead up to the 2016 election, I was like in golf courses in San Diego and Arizona, which are kind of like, I mean, now they're blue, but like not blue then. And, you know, I was like a queer person of color. Like, I was a woman playing golf, which is like, you know, not okay, better now, but like still. And, you know, like, I loved playing, but it got to this point where with the vitriol of like the 2016 election, I started experiencing so much more discrimination. And like, there's a part of me that's still like, has this been there this entire time? Which I think the answer is yes. But I was just insulated from it because my parents were with me on the course in junior golf, or my teammates were around me in college golf. And now I was just by myself. And so then it just became more intense. I started to feel like incredibly unsafe on the golf courses because I had a tournament director that was this is like the shittiest thing, but he would do that thing where he would say something racist and homophobic, but like wrapped in a joke. So like if you said anything to it, he'd be like,
"It's just a joke."
Exactly. And I was like, great, thanks for doing this on the first tee. Like, really excited to go play after this. One of my coaches started doing the same thing too. It was just like kind of constantly surrounded by xenophobic, racist, and homophobic, and a lot of transphobic comments because it was so like recent after Caitlyn Jenner had come out. And so like all these, you know, old white guys who were familiar with her Bruce. Career as like, like Bruce, an Olympic as like Bruce, you know, they were like appalled. And I was like, yo, calm the fuck down. She still kind of sucks. She's amazing, but she like kind of sucks.
She's kind of a horrible human being.
And it just, you know, it sucked. I mean, like, being surrounded by like that much discrimination coming at you from all sides, it takes its toll on you. I had like, I was having a hard time going to the golf course period because I didn't feel safe. Like, I felt like I constantly had to prove that I belonged there. Like, I had to, unless I was in the middle of the golf course by myself, I always felt like I had to be on guard.
And that sucks. Like, people think this is like 1943. This is 2016. You know?
Yeah.
That's the part a lot of people still to this day don't understand, that it is happening in present time. That someone doesn't feel safe.
Yeah. People don't believe it because they don't see it and it doesn't affect them. It's very like, as long as that's like the place of privilege, you know, like if you're not impacted by it, you have the choice to not pay attention to it and dismiss it. And most people do. And it's unfortunate.
That's exactly
it. Career away from you in essence.
Yeah. I mean, like it got to this point where, I mean, golf is such a mental game. Like, that's a huge part of it. So I was like so preoccupied with just trying to exist in a space that like it took a toll on my game. And then I was so frustrated that I wasn't performing well. And then I had kind of like a mental breakdown. And God bless starting therapy and discovering the miracle of therapy.
Yes.
But yeah, that whole process, it just, I mean, like it's still so painful thinking about it, but I guess I'm very good at tapping into anger, but I did kind of like my coping mechanism as I was like kind of processing everything was to find ways to be involved to kind of like make the sport better, like more inclusive. And so I had started working with Athlete Ally, who I'm super stoked to still be working with now as an ambassador. But they were a huge, you know, part of me being able to say, hey, like there are other queer athletes being visible, you know, trying to make the sports world more inclusive. Why can't that be in golf? Like that can be in golf. So yeah, I started working with them, you know, because of the policy work that they do, as well as the U.S. women's, I'm giving you my law school admissions essay right now. Like, and the, you know, U.S. women's national team's like equal pay lawsuit. And then there was another lawsuit that a trans long drive golfer, her name is Lana Lawless. Lucy Lawless is an actor. Lana Lawless.
I was about to say, she golfing?
Yeah, her name was Lana Lawless. She brought suit against the LPGA because they originally had a trans exclusion. It was like, you must be a woman at birth. And Lana was just like, fuck this noise. And brought suit. And, you know, it actually resulted in the LPGA changing in becoming more trans inclusive.
Nice.
So like all of those things together was like, aha, the law can be a tool. In order to create, you know, like visibility is great, but I want to have like, you know, I was craving like direct change. And I was like, I know I don't have that big of a platform. So like my voice isn't going to have the impact that I really wish it would. But I do know that if I'm able to learn the language of power, so like the law, then I can have like, you know, I can be more effective in policy change or in litigation, defending athletes from exclusionary policies or from abuse, or, you know, just like in general advocating for queer equality. Yeah. So that's the thing.
That's the thing that like that I love where the conversation is going, because I think for so long the people of, you know, of being other have been so fixated on trying to change people's minds. And, you know, I'm of the mindset where I don't give a shit what you think. I care about what the laws are. I care about equity, you know? So like you can think whatever you want, but, you know, if the way that you think turns into the way that you act, and the way that you act, you know, I'm not protected against, that's a problem. So let's figure out how to fix the laws so that, you know, we have structure in place to say, you can think whatever it is that you want to think, but the minute that your thought turns into action that discriminates against somebody else, that's where it becomes a problem. And we need to be working on that kind of change.
Yeah, totally agree. We need like the structure, because like our structure is racist as hell. Like it's so bad. The more I learn about the law, I'm just like, can I throw myself off a bridge, metaphorically? But yeah, no, it's totally that. It's like if you don't have the framework in place that is inclusive or that is empowering to marginalized communities, then racist, discriminatory people get kind of like this great excuse to continue being their shitty selves.
Totally.
Say that again. And sorry if my mic was low this whole time.
Now you're screaming, girl.
Oh, I'm screaming now?
Right? No, you're not screaming now. But compared to where you were, it's like, oh, there she is.
It's like, I don't know what was going on with my computer here. But yeah, so how many more years do you have in law school then?
This is my second, I'm bad at years. I constantly ask my partner, how old am I? Because I forget. But I'm in my second year, so 1.5 more years.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
3. It's a 3-year program. So yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, law school. That's something. So you're just like taking challenges. That's what you really like doing.
Yeah. Again, I just cannot stand being alone with my thoughts. So I'm like, what more can I add to my plate?
Right. That's funny. Well, we have Maya here all episode, and she's going to help us out with Asya Aunties this week. So what time is it? Ask
Your aunties.
Okay, who wants to read it this week?
I can read it.
Go for it, Jerrell.
All right. And this one, they gave us a name. So this is from Ellen in Minneapolis. It's from earlier.
Ellen.
Hey, boo. Haven't heard from you in a while. Hope you're doing well. But her question, look, she did get booed up. She was like,
you see those pictures? It was just they all kissy face and like eating spaghetti together.
looking so cute. I'm like, oh, yeah, I see y'all.
Oh, that's right.
So this question might even been changed since then, but we're gonna answer. We'll answer anyways. It says, one of my personal goals for 2020 is to say no more often. Is this something that you practice? I always feel like I need to explain myself when I say no because I feel guilty. Have you been able to overcome this, and how? Maya, would you like to go first?
Sure. I mean, I was telling y'all before we started recording. Also, my computer just said it stopped recording because, again, I have no I need to clear.
You're fine.
I need to buy a $2,000 new laptop. Is what I need to do. No, we were talking about this right before we started recording about how, like, this is something that is like a constant challenge for me, and it's something that I keep like, talking through in therapy. But I guess it's hard. It's so hard. And especially if you are a person of any marginalized identity, it feels like there's this, for me, I've always felt like this constant level of guilt and this constant pressure to kind of like prove that I belong and prove that like, I should be here, or that, you should be friends with me. And so it makes it even harder to say no to anything. And then, I mean, like, probably a big part of that is, being an Asian person. There's like all of these insanely pressure-filled stereotypes on us from like the model minority stuff. Yeah. And like, just most people being like, oh, you're Indian, so you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And like, I'm sorry, now I am going to be a lawyer, so I guess I'm fulfilling that. But it's hard because it's just like, oh, okay, so then I have to say yes to everything, because if I want to get ahead, like, and meet the stereotype, then I have to say yes to anything. Mm-hmm. Or as a marginalized identity, a person of a marginalized identity, it's like, oh, I want to kind of like get ahead and be successful in like a very, very, like shitty country for marginalized folks, right? Like, I have to say yes to everything in order to succeed. And so it's hard. Like, it's something that I've internalized a lot, and I'm like starting to learn and be more conscious of it and challenge it. And like, I guess for me, the small things that I've tried to do is just like say no to the tiniest of things and like try to be more cognizant of my capacity. And I'm just super grateful. Like, I have an amazing team of folks that I work with at Queer Asian Social Club, who you all would love also. They would love you too. So we should just all hang out.
Welcome to come whenever.
Podcast party.
Exactly. Yes. Absolutely. Once this Rona's over, we'll meet everybody in person.
Right? But we do this thing every time we check in or every time we start a new project where we like emphasize that we're only going to do this if it's within our capacity. And so if it isn't, then we're not going to do it. Or if it, if one person isn't able to meet something one week, then that's totally fine. We'll amend it, or we'll like kind of get rid of it, because what is most important is kind of like our health and well-being and like just our joy, I guess, to say the least. And so that has been super helpful for me, just being able to be like, okay, what is my capacity? Can I do this thing? And I still have I've said yes to so many things this past week that I really shouldn't have. So like, I'm still learning this. But I guess like the easiest or like the most important thing that I've learned so far is just like trying to check in with my capacity and trying to check in with like, how am I doing, instead of running away from my feelings by doing a million things.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you two go because I don't have an answer because I'm not good at it at all. So I
say no all the time and don't give two shits about it. that's part of the benefit of having a couple of being a little long in the tooth, I guess.
But how did you get there though?
I've always been able to say no.
Okay,
like she can do without. She can do without. But I think, but more to the point though, I think if 2020 has taught us anything, it's the importance of emotional wellness. And part of emotional wellness is being able to identify what are the things that you are, to your point, Maya, what are the things that you're capable of? What are the things that you're willing to do? What are the things that you're interested in doing? And I think for a lot of us, there are all these external pressures of like this idealized, like, point of view of what friendships are supposed to look like, or what work is supposed to look like, or what ambition is supposed to look like, or what, climbing the corporate ladder is supposed to look like, or what entrepreneurship is supposed to look like, or what relationships, like we've idealized like this stuff. It's almost kind of like this Walt Disney version of life that so many people are trying to live up to. And we've seen like this really negative undercurrent of cancel culture coming in to say, oh, if you do something that I don't like, then I'm just going to cancel you. And so I do feel like there are a lot of people out there that, that whether it's saying no to other people, which is kind of where I'm reading to this versus saying no to like, pressures to do things like for your career or whatever. But I do feel like, there is just this undue pressure put on people to kind of live up to their expectations instead of living up to your own capabilities and your own faculties. And sometimes you just got to say no. And it no heat, no judgment. It doesn't mean that I don't want to spend time with you. It doesn't mean that, that what you're doing is not valuable and important and whatever. But sometimes it's just not for the other person. And quite frankly, I think at the end of the day, for a person to overcome, if answering the question for the other people to overcome it, I think individuals have to determine what's important to them. So if your mental wellness is important to you, you will then have to figure out a way to find out how you can ultimately disappoint those other people and their expectations by protecting yourself and saying no to the things that you're not interested in or don't have the capability of performing.
Dawon, can you be my dad?
I will be your dad. You can call me anytime.
Daddy. If you call me daddy.
I'm not gonna lie. It's not easy. It's not easy to say no. You still are gonna have to deal with disappointing other people and all that kind of stuff. But I think the trick is trying to figure out, is disappointing them worth not living up to your potential or damaging your own self, and putting yourself and others, putting you in situations where you are triggered to have to make the choice. Is this relationship worth it for me to sacrifice my own happiness to make you happy? For whatever reason, that's you teach people how to treat you. And so if a pattern of behavior that you're doing is such that people are always like expecting you to go along with them, and you're not holding your ground for the things that you don't want to do, then they will continue to do that, and they will continue to push that line. And so at a certain point, you're going to get, whether it's age, whether it's you getting like up to your to your boiling point and, cussing somebody out, like there will be a right sizing of that internally it will either be a reaction to that experience, or it will be proactively you saying, I need to start stepping in and making room for myself.
Yeah. For me, I was raised and kind of conditioned to be the type of person to give my shirt off my back, and whatever I got, you got. And, although I love being that person, at the same time, I wasn't taught when to keep my damn shirt and when to keep the shit in my pockets. And, that's reserved for me, because I found myself then going broke and being mentally without and emotionally without and physically without, because I was always giving to someone else. And it wasn't necessarily that other people were asking me to. It was just that, like, I even just saw, and I was just doing it. So for there, if someone asked, if they weren't even asking, I was simply doing it, there was no way for me to say no. And it wasn't until probably like in my mid-20s when I realized that I didn't have that. I found a lot of those transactions, well, they were basically transactions and they were one way. I found that there weren't a lot of people in my life that were doing the same in return. And that was the moment and how I found the strength to start saying no. Because if I only got one life, well, then who's looking out for Jerrell? If I'm the only one just giving out to everyone that I know. And so I really just started taking a look back and I just started kind of setting up some guidelines. You know, if me saying yes, is this going to hurt me or harm me in any kind of way? Is this going to make my life any harder or make situations harder for me? Also, is this person just being kind of lazy and ungrateful? You know, like if they're just being demanding, because some people are suckers. Some people are just takers and they just like, I'll just go to that person and I'm just going to ask them to do it versus doing it the damn selves, you know? And because then that's once you start enabling people, then you got a bloodsucker on you and then you got to figure out how to get that damn leash off. So then I start recognizing for real, because people will they will suck it right out of you until you don't have no more and they'll find another person to leech on to. Mm-hmm. So then I start paying attention to those signs. And then now I'm very selective to what I say yes to. I may not say no, but I'll say, well, how about I help you figure out what it is that you need to do? Let's make a plan together. I'll help you figure out what it is to get what you need. I may not be able to provide it for you, but I'm going to help you to some capacity. And so instead of saying no, that was a workaround that I found as far as I could still help people without breaking me.
Yeah, I mean, I come from two pastors, so like that is literally the environment of, especially when you're a pastor's kid, to give a lot of yourself, you know? And a lot of it, I don't even know when I was taught. It was just probably always there. That is my comfort zone. If I'm able to help and I have the capabilities and the either financially, mentally, emotionally, whatever, it's just naturally in me to do so. However, what I've found the older I've gotten is that people expect that of me because I am good at that or whatever. And that's where I always end up having that hard time finding that line, because the expectation has always been there, you know? And so it's just like, I've never even had the opportunity to say no, because when your parents are pastors, what it look like when you have people in need and they're going to the church, they're going to the pastors and they say no. What the hell is that about, you know? And so that's when almost a lot of the negative stereotypes come about the church and things like that. So it's just like, I've always struggled with that line because it's always been maybe an unwritten expectation of a pastor's family. So carrying that until you get older, and I probably need to go to therapy to unravel a lot of that stuff. There's nothing to unravel. I just told you what it is. I told you what it is. So now it's just like, either I got to do it or I don't do it. But, so I think that's where just a lot of that comes from. Like, both my parents will give you the shirt off their back. Literally, they will find a way to help whatever. And that's literally probably, even out of all my siblings, I'm probably the one. Even not even just my siblings, like the family, my cousins, everyone kind of looked to me, Kerel will figure it out. And it's true, you know? But sometimes there are times where I'm like, I am tired. I need someone to figure it out for me. And that I still probably don't have on a regular basis, honestly, to be quite frank, because I probably don't seek that out because I've always had to do it. You know? So it's just this weird circle of, even before Kerel even had conscious thoughts, since my parents were already in that ministry field, that was their energy. And that's what we were taught and things like that, where I haven't ever, here I am 36 years old, never really had the opportunity to say no to anyone. You know? And right, wrong, or indifferent, I do it and life goes on and whatever, but I don't have the capability, honestly. A lot of times I've gotten better. There's certain things. If I know for sure that I don't have the ability to do it, I'll say no easily. But if I know there's a capability in me for whomever to be successful and things like that, for podcasts to be successful, to be my career to be successful and whatever project is, it's hard for me to say no because there's something in me that I'm like, well, Kerel, you have the ability.
Right.
If I were to go back to like the question and like, this whole comment around, I always feel like I need to explain myself when I say no. I don't know necessarily that will ever go away. Like, because some people just don't, if somebody asks you, oh, can you do this for me? And you just say no, and then just like not say anything, they're going to be like, well, why not? And then you just can't be there, be quiet, so I would just recommend, you thinking about, whether your reasons for saying no to anything are your own, and you can choose whatever it is that you want to share with that other individual that's asking that of you. I would just consider and offer that you think about what are a couple of kind of like one-liners, that you can pull out that you can say that don't necessarily explain why you're saying no, because sometimes it's nobody's business why you're saying no. And,
right.
You can just say, it's nobody's business. I'm not doing it, period. But I would encourage you to think about, I would just encourage you to think about, I know what you're doing, Garrett.
Salt and pepper.
Right. But I would just encourage you to think about what are some like kind of go-to statements that get you out of like this, your own what I would assume would be your personal need to feel like you have to explain yourself when no explanation is necessary.
As guilt.
And
guilt is hard though. That guilt is hard to overcome though.
Look at the dude in North Carolina. I think it was North Carolina. The dude that worked at the Hilton when the chick called him all kinds of N-words and whatnot. And it's above me now. So he had a go-to. So
I'm not that person.
For somebody who it is hard for, and going back to the question here is, I always feel like I need to explain myself, because when I, say no, I feel guilty. Well, one way to help assuage that is either you just resign yourself to explaining why you're saying no, or A, or B, you come up with, kind of a couple of one-liners that are your go-tos that get you out of that situation. I'd rather not talk about that right now, or I don't have the capacity right now, or
I don't know. As a person like that, it sounds like Ellen and I.
Yeah, as that guilt.
Yes.
Statements aren't going to
work.
Fight that guilt. Statement don't fight that guilt because that feeling is still there. But
Absolutely.
I think you are onto something, Dawon. I think it's more so though of just unpacking why it is that you feel guilty. And because I think as soon as you solve that, then that guilt will be gone. But I think to even get to that area, you have to eventually be okay with putting yourself first and understand that you were trying to do something for you, and honestly, I think that might be kind of the root of that guilt is because you want to do something and it's not because of someone else. Can tend to make you feel like, well, I didn't help that person and now that person's going to be without and it's all my fault. And it's like, no, accountability is being able to take only what you can handle. Don't take someone else's burden and put that on you as if now, if you say no, you did now hurt that person. That person, that situation that's asking you for something is asking you because they got themselves into that whatever situation or whatever reason they're asking you for help. You didn't get them there. It's not because of you that they're asking you for help. So,
but I think in your mind, and I'm just playing because I'm that person. So in your mind, you feel they sought you out because you have the capabilities and the abilities to aid them. So that's how your mind flips it. So
right, and that's what I'm saying. You got to think about that. You have to process that.
So I think ways that I've slowly, even though I'm not all the way there, have gotten better is you're going to feel guilty. Point blank, period. And you're going to feel that. Feel it. It's going to be there. And in a weird way, it's going to be okay. The one-liners is not going to work. I'm telling you. I get it. I get it in theory.
Let's be clear. That's because I don't want to anyone mischaracterize what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if the idea is that you don't want to have to explain yourself, then you use a one-liner. I'm not saying that the one-liner is assuading you of guilt. Let's be clear.
No. That's not where I was going. So nope, I understood you. But I'm just saying, you're still going. Like, even you're literally, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be like, okay, I got my one-liner. I'm ready. And then it's going to hit you in something that you're really good at. Like, Kerel, do this musical thing. Kerel, edit this podcast for me. Something like that. You'd be like, damn, I could do it probably even quicker than them, or I can show them. And then that's how it starts. Even when you went into it knowing, let me have this one-liner ready, you almost find a way to talk yourself out of that one-liner.
Yeah.
And so,
I do that all the time.
I know that. As soon as you said that, I was just like, damn.
See? And so it's just like, even though you had the intention, even though you know that you need to be working on this, it's going to always come in a presentation that you're like, well, you know, my husband comes in. Well, okay, let me help them because I don't want to see them struggle. I don't want to see them do it. Even though your plate is freaking full, you don't want to see them struggle. So that's how your mind plays it on you. And so that's what I struggle with, because it's like, I don't want to see anyone struggle. I am good at a lot of shit. Like, to toot my own horn, like we talked about this on another episode. But what I have to realize is, even though I am good at it and can probably do it faster than whomever's asking me, I don't have the ability right now. And it's okay to say no to that and hope. And if they struggle, sorry. But I was going to struggle in different ways, maybe emotionally, maybe I'm too tired now because I added something, you know, and that's the hard part, to realize that, like, even though, yes, you're capable, you might be hindering yourself, and it might not be obvious at first. It might be an accumulation over time. That's the part of it that a lot of times that I had to realize that, like, oh man, this is building. It's not just from this week. It's not from this past year. It might be the last 5 years of it building, and now I'm either drained or I'm about to snap, like you said earlier, Dawon, whatever it may be. And that's when you got to realize, oh shit, that's not healthy for me. It's literally might not be the one day. It might be an accumulation of time of it to really rear its ugly head of what you've been doing.
And maybe that's something too to think about too, is maybe not saying no. How about not right now?
That
you
part.
know, maybe where I'm like, you know, like I don't have the emotional or whatever it is right now, but when I do, I'm gonna circle back to you, and I got you when I can give you 100, you know, and maybe that will kind of help you get used to being able to just give yourself that space to be able to be like, this is not the time. No, it's not the time.
I think something that, like, all three of you kind of mentioned, even though not like super explicitly, but it's like, we don't owe anyone anything really. And like, that's something that I've been trying to remember, and it's so hard because Kerel, and like, I'm just like you. I'm like, wait, but I'm good at things, like I should do it.
Right.
But like, I don't know. It's kind of, it's been great hearing. I feel like I got a pep talk by all of you, because it's something that I think I really needed to hear recently. But I don't know. It's like that idea of like, we don't owe anything to any other person except for ourselves, really. Because it's like, you know, Jerrell, you were talking about this too. It's like, who's going to look out for, you know, you? Like, if you're looking out for everybody else. And I think that, you know, I had like a whole rough go of it going into law school and dealing with like anxiety and depression, because the law, like many spaces in, you know, corporate world, not very forgiving when it comes to mental health or emotional health. And so like, I would have moments where I was like, I literally cannot function. Like, I can't go do this thing because I'm having like a horrible anxiety attack, or like I'm really, really depressed right now. And like, that was really hard because, you know, like, of course it might be like a more severe example of like what this person may be talking about, but it really kind of emphasized to me like, oh, I don't owe it to these people to be anything more than I am right now. And like, saying that all with the caveat of, I can say that very well on a podcast to you all right now, but like, the act of me putting that into practice is a whole other story, because you don't want to see people struggling or hurting when you feel like you have the capability. It's like, yeah, like, you know, I can deal with my own struggles, but I don't want to see you struggling.
Exactly.
And so, like, can I help?
The problem of it is, so there's a lot that's baked into this kind of question. I think that the challenge of it is that we largely have not built practice and skill in managing and navigating uncomfortable spaces, uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable spaces. You know, one of the reasons why we have this whole segment is because, you know, most of the things we talk about is effective communication skills. This is part of it. You know, part of it is, you know, effectively having a conversation with somebody about what you can and can't, or what you're willing and not willing to do. But then the other part of it is, you know, you interpersonally dealing with your own stuff, devoid of that other person, you know, with, you know, guilt or uncomfortableness or disappointing somebody else. And those are all like things that one has to deal with internally, you know, that, you know, this isn't like a tactic. This is more of a strategy to kind of unpack, like, what are those feelings that are attached to that? And then how do you work through that so that when you're in those situations, you are feeling less of whatever that underlying feeling is.
Mm-hmm. But man, continue to send your Ask Your Auntie questions. AYA@MinorityReport.com, or DM us or text us, whatever you need to do. We like these questions. This was been out there for a little while. It was probably the beginning of 2020, but we will get to them eventually. And clearly it was right on time because we had a lot to say about that one.
Facts.
But quickly, okay, pro golfer, the Masters are this week. So when this episode comes out, hopefully the champion will be crowned by then, because it's been raining in Georgia, so it might push to a Monday final. We'll see. Who do you have?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. Because I literally was texting somebody about this earlier today. We found out that Bryson DeChambeau, who like currently is, I don't know, like bombing everything on every golf course, which I'm like, this is not how you play golf, but whatever, go for it.
Because didn't he like put on weight specifically to like bomb these golf balls?
Literally, he started training as a long driver in order to like increase his distance. And it's like a brilliant play for some courses. But Augusta is not a course where you can just go and hit like long ass drives.
Right.
Like that course, like the whole point of the Masters is it requires finesse.
Yes.
And like the fact that we're playing it in November, like it's, like you were saying, it's going to rain all weekend. Like tomorrow, I looked at the forecast because I'm a nerd. And I was like, ooh, what's going to happen? And it says thunderstorms maybe tomorrow. And I'm like, not great for a first round.
No.
Because of like daylight savings, they have to tee off way earlier than they normally would. So it's like, you know, temperature and humidity affects ball flight and like distance. So for somebody like Bryson, like you got to be more than just hitting a lot of drives. Also, I want to see Augusta. I put like that entire sentence together. I want to see Augusta like truly fuck him over, because apparently he's a huge Trump supporter. And I'm like, you can go not be here. Augusta voted blue. Like, sucks to suck.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to play well on this golf course.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I mean, like, obviously, like, Tiger is problematic, but I have a huge soft spot for him because he was like, like, there's this great super side note. There's this great podcast called All American that's like going into Tiger and like really exploring his legacy with regard to kind of race and like, because that's not really talked about with Tiger. People are like, yes, a black person has made it, so golf is woke now. And it's like, nope.
It's like, no.
Absolutely not.
And we haven't seen like the legacy, like Serena and Venus, we kind of see their legacy now. Tiger, no one really came after him.
But he never really claimed the culture either.
Exactly.
Let's do a real.
That
That's
part.
true too. That's
Yeah.
true, too.
Like that he did like an OJ move. Like he's like, I'm rich, bitch, and like deuces, you know.
I mean,
like,
Dave Chappelle did that skit when they traded Tiger Woods for someone else.
Yes.
The racial draft.
Yeah, the racial draft.
So he was never really down for the culture and like opening with the intention of opening doors for other people in the culture. He was really kind of like by himself.
And that's got to be kind of hard to like I want to check that out because I wonder if they kind of almost get into that psyche too, because it's like he was like the first. He's multiracial. Like there's so many things, and then the media wouldn't even allow him to be culturally black or anything. Honestly, like the culture propped him up so high that I can't even imagine to be in this space. I would like to think that I wouldn't get almost like, oh, let me just forget my culture and let me get all this coin. But when you're the first and it's like that, like Tiger was like it.
But he's also been in the game for long enough that he could have, now that he has enough gravitas to have been able to make the road.
Well, I mean, look at Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan never did either. So
I was gonna say,
and a lot of people checking for him like that. Like,
golf makes me think that you have
guys.
That's true. Golf makes me feel like I think like, and Maya, you can let me know if this is true, but I feel like in golf, in order to be a part of it, you have to drink the Kool-Aid.
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel like maybe in Tiger's situation, he drank so much of the Kool-Aid for so long that he just forgot. And it reminds me of not Us, but what was the movie before that Jordan Peele did with the teacup?
Get Out.
Get Out. Remind me of Get Out. You know, he went,
he's
to
in
see
a
the
sunken
girlfriend
place.
and he just never came home.
You all
That's how they
have to
get
listen
you.
to this podcast
I'm going
because
to.
so it's like hosted by, I'm not sure the ethnicity of like one of the hosts, but she's a woman, and then there's like an Asian guy who kind of comes in. So it feels super refreshing to have not white men talking about
That
Tiger
part.
Woods.
That part.
Really go into kind of like all of this with race. And it's like fascinating because it's so frustrating because like, I don't know, for me, and like I know like a whole bunch of like, young kids who were Black and Asian were just like, holy shit, this is our guy. Like we can do that.
Yeah.
And then he barely claims it. I think only this week or like more recently, he's been talking about his mom and his like Thai ancestry, but like Nike Golf, which I obviously bought, they came out with like a new polo that has like his tiger head cover on it. And the ad for it was him talking about how his mom would always sew in Thai, "I love you, mom," on all of his head covers.
Oh, and that's just now coming out. Damn.
Yeah, and I was just like, wait, I sent that to my mom because I was like, Mom, like I wrote my name in Sanskrit on my golf ball every time because it was just like, this reminds me of my parents.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that rate, there's so much.
It's a lot of layers.
So much to say.
Especially
about
the time he was like
golf.
really popping, like the come up at the end of the 90s, like that time period is just even different than now. Like, there weren't a lot of woke people at all.
Also, it's 2020. Like, I can't remember his name. I want to say his name is Cameron, but he is a half Black golfer who is sponsored by Nike and has been very, very vocal about like racial equality within the sports. Like he did this thing, I think, during the US Open where he wore one black shoe and one white shoe, and did like this whole like ad with Nike about his grandfather and like what his grandfather taught him about golf and like this huge legacy and why we have to talk about race in the sport and how it's so shitty.
Especially
it's like
that golf seems like the last frontier of sport, like that, and like almost like NASCAR. It's like
totally.
It's like the last frontier of them holding on to the sanctity of whiteness.
Yep. But yeah, like it's like this dude, he's like a young kid who he was able to like say all of these things very boldly with a sponsor. Like Nike has been, doing, they are problematic in certain ways, but they have like stood behind racial justice and like, equality movements, like social justice movements. Yeah. Tiger is sponsored by the same company. Exactly. It's like, bro, you could say something.
That's so true.
Like, but yeah, so true. I mean, like, I would love to see him win again because, like, I cried so many tears when I saw him hug his kid last year on, like, the green, and what a phenomenal comeback.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's just, like, this year has taken a toll on everybody. So I don't know, like, he has a fused back, and, like, it's not consistent, like, when you have a fused back. I mean, like, I would love to see, like, younger players like Ricky Fowler or Rory McIlroy. I love Rory, but I would love to see Rory them. Too. He's such a cutie. He has such a good butt.
He does have a nice butt.
Yeah. He has such a good butt. He does. He's such a good butt.
There's another guy. There's a white guy that has like a dope butt, and I'm like, man.
I know who you're talking about.
Fine, and he does pretty well every time. Hold on.
Oh my god, I want to know who this is. I only care about the butts in golf.
Same here. That's and if I don't find it now, I will DM you.
Please, I need to know.
But do you think Dustin Johnson will win it? Because he's been playing well, and he's never won it, and he's always been like right there, but like can't pull it all together at Augusta.
So I also just found out that he's a big Trump guy.
Oh, damn it all, then fuck him.
So I was just like, no, like, I'm not going to root for you anymore.
Nope, I'm good. Me either. I'm good. I hope he doesn't make the cut.
I honestly don't think that, like, even outside of that, I'm not sure that he would have, like, the game to beat Augusta, because it's like, he's also a long hitter and doesn't necessarily have a spectacular short game, which in raining conditions, you need to be able to scramble. Yeah. So if, like, I feel like the players who are able to, like, get up and down around the green and, like, are really comfortable in that, like, 100 yards in, like, kind of like those wedge yardages and around the green, like, I think they're going to have the advantage this weekend but then that being said, because it's going to be wet, the greens are going to be softer, so people are going to be able to kind of like go pin hunting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just don't want any of the Trump guys to win, and that's where I'm at.
That part. Mm-hmm. So we'll see who ends up winning it. It's weird. Like, I enjoy watching golf. A lot of people are like, really? I'm like, I do. I don't watch every tournament. Some tournaments I'm like, okay, this is just a bit too much. But at least the four majors, I definitely watch. So,
Kerel, I'm gonna have to like text you updates this entire weekend.
Absolutely. I'll give you
great news to me.
I'll give you a firsthand weather report. Like, I'll look out my window and be like, it's horrible. Like, today it was so fucking humid and it was like 80 degrees randomly.
Oh God.
It was horrible, and it was like downpouring all day. So we'll see what happens. But we also have maybe potentially another problematic winner, Asia, who just won Miss USA from Mississippi. A lot of her past stuff is coming out now, and like actually community members are the ones that like are putting it on our page right now, because we have a picture up there right now. But it looks like some old tweets are coming up that she's against the gay community. And then she performed at the Trump rally in 2018 and then was also at another event with him. So all of this is starting to come up in Twitter. And
Damn.
I know.
Wait, that's so much worse than I thought it would be.
Yeah, so they're trying to figure out where she really stands. She's like, I guess people are saying that she had contracts to sing at these, but it's just like, okay, you don't need to get no contract to sing at no Trump stuff, So it's going to be interesting how they handle that. And it just sucks that she's the first Black Mississippi Miss USA, and things like that. But it's just like, ooh, girl, you done drank the Kool-Aid in Mississippi.
Girl. That's how she got it.
I wasn't
Again,
paying
the Kool-Aid.
attention to the like Miss USA stuff.
I didn't even know what happened.
Me
Yeah, I
either.
didn't
Like I
either.
saw the community literally put messages up right before we hopped on. I was like, okay, what's going on with this picture? I was like, what's bad about it? Then I'm like, ooh.
I'm talking about Miss USA at all. I didn't even know
Yeah,
that.
I was like, I
on
had no
either.
idea. We're still doing this, okay?
Okay.
But I did. So, like, the only reason I knew that it was like happening is because my partner stumbled across Miss Utah. Her
Okay.
name is Rachel Slauson, and she is like queer. She is a suicide survivor. She has bipolar disorder and like was homeless at a certain point in her life. And like her entire platform, like running into Miss USA was like on like queerness, on, you know, like mental health awareness, like all of these things. And I was like obsessed with it. Like her Instagram account is great. She wore pants, which I guess is like a huge deal for Miss USA.
Good for her. Yeah, first openly bisexual woman to compete in Miss USA, bringing much needed representation to the pageant stage. Come on, Miss Utah. And she a brunette.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have picked a brunette in Utah, I don't think. Go ahead
But
now.
yeah, that's all I knew about Miss USA. So I'm like, come on, Asia. Like
Right.
come on.
Yeah, like because once the community members started chiming in, I'm like, okay, hold on, let me look something up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, ooh. I'm like, well, damn. I was like, shit, we might need to just take that bitch down.
It's like representation matters,
You know?
to a certain degree.
Yes.
Or I guess it's like representation matters. Asia did it. She is problematic. So for more girls, it's like, hey, we can do better. Like somebody who is problematic won this achievement. And so for those of us who are not necessarily that level of problematic can also achieve that thing.
I guess.
I mean, now that I know
Me
this,
trying to silver line it.
Right.
Now that I know this, I'm going back to calling her Asya.
Ooh, right.
That's to be her name. I ain't even gonna say her name. That's Asya over there.
She over there.
Asya.
Wait, do you think she puts granola in her bowls? I was trying to make an acai joke, and I needed to explain it because I didn't think that it would land.
Yeah.
So
that one kind of went over.
just a play on words.
and I hope she comes out one way or the other. Like, I mean, it is what it is, but it's just like the world's chattering now. So you need to either nip it in the bud now, or it's just going to look horrible, and you're going to have a rough year as Miss USA going to a lot of these places, especially since
there was an.
Go ahead.
I will say that's one dope that is back-to-back years has been a black woman who's been Miss USA.
Yeah.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah. Because last year was Miss USA, Miss America, and Miss Teen USA were all black.
And then Miss Universe came in.
And Miss
right
Universe.
at the end,
Yep, we're at the end. Yep, all the four major pageants in the whole world. Were.
Yeah, there was an article. I just looked it up. There's an article in People Magazine where she talks about the whole Trump thing, and she said that it says Branch tells people that while she doesn't typically share political beliefs, her performance at the rally was scheduled for her while under contractual obligation with the Miss Mississippi Corporation.
Okay.
That's a sly way of saying I voted for Trump. Because if you really don't agree with old boy, especially out of any political person in our country's history, you're gonna be like, I was Miss Mississippi, maybe do this shit, but go Biden. Like you gonna
if you remember,
like would have showed up with a Biden shirt on,
right? You would have done something.
But two things. One, if you remember, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken, is it Mississippi or Louisiana? Mississippi was the one that just changed their state flag, and it had the Confederate flag on it. Remember?
It wasn't Mississippi.
That was Mississippi.
Well, they never had a flag. I don't think Mississippi. I think they just voted.
That? Was that Louisiana?
It was somewhere though. I remember that story.
Somewhere down there.
Mm-hmm.
But the other part of it is
South Carolina.
No, not South Carolina. It was
It was
like Mississippi. It was like Mississippi, Missouri,
Alexa?
or or Louisiana or something like that. But at any rate, but the other part of it is that, you know, when you win these crowns, there are certain obligations that you have to do in order to uphold your status. So if she ever wanted to compete in the Miss USA, she would have had, you know, perform these obligations. Yeah. And I'm not saying that she should have done that, because if you're, you know, if you don't believe in if you don't believe in what that party is representing, then maybe you shouldn't participate in that and you should forego their crown. But there are other things that are at play.
Here's how I know she liked Trump, because she said, I normally don't talk about my political affiliations. That line right there.
I don't know. I have to go back with Dawon.
Right, that is the cop-out line.
No, I have to go back to Dawon, because I know a lot of people who've been in pageants.
Well, that doesn't mean you don't not do your obligations.
No, but no. It's not just about the obligation. Like, in the pageant world, is very much still kind of like there are do's and don'ts. And if you cross those lines, you're not going to go anywhere in the pageant world. You know,
she won already.
It's all about it. But guess what? We're talking about her past, meaning she had to do this shit to get to where she got. She just became Miss USA. So going forward now.
But is that people article from after she won?
It was yesterday.
Then
right. But she's talking about her past. She's talking about her past.
I mean, right?
No. It's. But like Dawon said though, like if you got to do something under a contract, like it's a fucking contract.
Yeah, no, I get that part.
To do.
But there's still ways to give the hint, especially if the whole world is chattering. If say I was under contract or something and the whole world said, Kerel, you voted for Trump. I'm going to find a way, even if it's coded, you'd be like, you know, I don't normally talk about my political beliefs, but I believe in the right for a woman to choose. Things like that. Like I would have put something at the end of that. But you
never hear any of the pageant queens really go there. Like even the past winners, you don't hear anything about that.
Yeah,
I think no, you do not.
No, you don't.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't talk about
and Vanessa
that
Williams was even stripped years ago because of her issue. Like the pageant world is very.
Well, Vanessa, that was 84.
But still, but that's the thing. The pageant world is very.
I get it. I understand it, y'all. Y'all think I don't understand.
They're not coming up. But we're not saying that you understand. Like,
I just disagree with the understanding.
But we're just saying the reality of the fact. There's a difference between the reality and the fact.
What were you saying, Maya?
Oh, no. I was just going to say, like, it feels it's like I get everything that Dawon and, like, I get what all of you guys are saying. Because the pageant world feels really similar to the golf world where there's, like, this culture that's so ingrained and is so out of touch with like now, but it's so like essential to the success of that thing that it like you have to buy into it to a certain degree. And it's like, like, us right now, like standing on the outside of it are like, we would say something like, of course, like it's high time, like it is important for folks who are visible to say something and who have that platform to say something. And like, I also get that, like, if winning Miss USA, if doing pageants was like your dream, like there's a huge part of you that would buy into the culture and who would just kind of like go along with it. And honestly, like, that's like the language of the law and like the intimidation of contracts. Like, I think that is not be like diminished at all. Like that stuff is scary. Like I'm terrified of my lease. I'm terrified anytime somebody is like, contract this, contract that. And I'm like, I don't know. Are you going to sue me? Yeah. So like, I get that point too. And I feel like it totally, I guess it points back to like how there is like a really important need for a cultural shift in these spaces where it's like, why can't we have the ability for these pageant winners to either not talk about politics if they don't want to, or talk about politics if they do want to. Right. Like there should be space for all of that.
Well, if you had to delete your LGBT tweet back in the day, then that gives me enough to know what you're talking about, Asya.
Yeah. I don't know enough about this to label her. I'm just, doing a little bit of research right now after finding out. And there's an article that was written by BET Magazine today that says that actually she was labeled, quote unquote, a Trump supporter by conservatives on social media. So there wasn't her claim.
Could be too.
And I'm just giving you the facts. So let me go right. Let me go right down with it. You don't believe it, but that's okay. Let me just give the facts. That's not what I said, girl. Okay. You did say you don't believe it.
Did I say that?
Okay. Well, let me just
earlier when we were trying to justify how she may not be. That you said.
Okay, if I said it, my bad. But I'll listen back. That's not what I meant. Then, if that's what I said, I don't believe it. My bad. So she says. That the article says that according to People, this was under contractual obligation with Mississippi Corporation. She then gives they quote the People quote where she says, regardless of political beliefs, I find it an honor. Then she says, she continues, and I know I got caught in a lot of backlash for that. But no one knows if this has anything to do with my political beliefs or not. So I think that's pretty telling. I did have a duty as an employee of the Miss Mississippi Corporation, as well as a representative of Mississippi State. And she says, as for attending the event at the White House, she said, if you can't get a seat at the table, and this is referring to, she's been a longstanding proponent and her platform is prison reform. So she's responding to that. She says, as for attending an event at the White House, she said, if you can't get a seat at the table, you can't make a difference. I found that to be an inspiring and moving moment for me because it shows that I can accomplish things that I can accomplish my goals and really make a difference in the world. So I think perhaps there is a little bit of, people like attributing things to her without actually coming from her herself. And I think that's a very dangerous place for us to be. And when we're using our platform, it's just important to show, both sides of the table. If she came out and said she's a Trump supporter, or she came out and she did some things that were against like the LGBT community, I think we should call her to the table for that. But, let's just be careful about how we're characterizing people.
Yeah. I don't know. I just know, like, before they crown the winner, they always say, and if this person is unable to perform their duty, let me know, bitch, if you don't stay your ass in line, we gonna replace
you. Run up there like Joe. Run up there like Joe Biden did. Right. 4-yard march.
So I think that pretty much tells us, though, like, when it comes to having to abide by that contract, if you're not in line, they're like, and now you out, take that crown, Miss Runner Up, bring your ass over here, because she gonna do it since you ain't gonna do it.
Yeah, it's such a shitty situation to be in. Yeah. I have a few friends who, this is slightly different, but I have a few friends who have worked at the Department of Justice throughout Trump's presidency, and they are like, no, they fucking hate him, like the rest of us. Yeah. And they've luckily, not had to, be super involved with the political aspect of things, but it's the same thing. It's kind of this tension of we're in this space that would allow us to have really important change. And it's so intensely problematic because of the tyrannical toddler who's in charge. And, exactly what she said, right? How do you solve that tension of in order to have impact, you have to be at the table, or there has to be some kind of access to power, in whatever way that means.
Didn't we say before in the episode to build your own table? Who said that?
I like that. I'm much more of a fan of build your own table, which I feel like is what so many people are doing right now. And it's also hard to escape the fact that the structure is so fucking overwhelming and still in place. You gotta buy the wood
from the same people that built the other tables.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but yeah, hopefully the truth comes out, because I agree, we don't want to put her in a light that's not correct. However, I feel like if all these people are coming and interviewing you now, you have the opportunity, because you already got the crown. Yes, you might have to give it up, but you have the opportunity now, if you really feel like you're being misrepresented, to represent yourself, because everybody's looking at you now.
Yeah.
So that's that's all I'm thinking.
You know who else says something problematic?
Who?
Miss KeKe Palmer.
Ooh, what she said?
Who tweeted on Monday, or on the 9th, talking about, imagine if your EBT card could only work on healthy items.
I understand the sentiment behind that. It is problematic to say that because I think the underlying issue is the assumption. I don't want to say the assumption, but the underlying issue with that kind of a statement is the reality, not the assumption, but the reality that people that are that need this kind of financial assistance for food don't always have access to good quality food. Mm-hmm. So access to food is access to to quality fruits, vegetables, etc. That's deemed as healthy. Versus packaged foods is not always available to folks that have this kind of a benefit. So I think it's I don't know what the context was within, like this tweet, if it was an isolated tweet or if it was in a series.
No, it was an isolated tweet. That was her tweet. And then she took it down. And then she backtracked and she mentioned exactly what you were saying, Dawon. The reason why she wants to say it is because the healthy stuff is more expensive than the non-healthy stuff. And we should have access. It should, that should be free. Like if you swipe your EBT card, it should just be free. That's what she was trying to get at. She just used the word right. Because as soon as you said only, I'm like, oh, now you're trying to control people. And then because right now, because you can't even buy with the EBT card. You can't.
That's what I was gonna say. It's just like
there's already certain things you can't do with it already. So then to say only healthy foods, it's like, well, damn, man.
And then in the pandemic, like a lot of the foods that you could buy got wiped off the shelves. So literally what was left was a lot of the bad foods, which is a lot of people don't know. Like there's literally digits on the shelves, that codes on the shelves that show what you can and cannot buy. Yeah. And when your options, especially in a time like this, are limited and few, it's either to not eat or I'm going to get these little cookies or something, So it's just like, I hope that's what she meant. And I get it. I mean, that's probably what she did mean, but it's hard. Like, it's hard.
We were just talking about this at the top of the episode today, about language choices and not always getting it right. And I think it's a really dangerous thing, where we've got accustomed to canceling people so fast off of something that they said, without really understanding the full context with which it's being presented, and people will run with this stuff. And if anybody looks at or is familiar with, how KeKe Palmer has presented information out there, she more often than not is much more balanced and socially responsible. So to have something like this come out, it struck me as kind of odd phrasing. And I was like, well, wait a minute, what else is going on around this statement that we're not getting? Because this sounds like a soundbite that somebody took and started running with it.
Yeah. So.
It's like the language usage stuff, it's so hard. And especially with like how, I guess cancel culture is what we want to call it, where people, it's like almost like we're all out for blood. We're like out to just see the mistakes.
I can't believe they said that.
Right? And you're just like, it's on, it's done, goodbye.
Like instant offended.
Right? And I'm like, that doesn't really allow space for people to grow because we're all imperfect. And it's like, at least for me, like, growing up in the United States, which is a deeply flawed country and a deeply flawed society, I have like a lot of internalized isms that I really, I want to believe that I don't have those things, but they're still there. And I feel like just the whole way that especially Twitter is truly out for blood.
Twitter is crazy.
Does not allow people to grow. And it's like, hey, sure, we're all going to, I feel like it's also the worst when we're talking about politicians too. It's like, they're politicians that are not going to be great just at a baseline. So chill. But I don't know. I think especially with queer language and language within the LGBTQ community, and how it's really incredible to see so many new ways and new words for people to truly identify as who they are. That's amazing and really beautiful. And language is changing so fast that like even those of us who are in the community, like it's going to take a second to kind of understand what that is. And it's not because, you know, we're bad. It's just that it's moving really fast and we're taking a second to understand, and we want to understand, we want to grow.
Absolutely. But
like we can't do that if there isn't a lot of space for that.
Yeah. So the constant fear of even saying the wrong thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Even the Grammys have taken a cue from like social norms, and back in June, they made a decision to eliminate the use of the word of urban as it relates to like hip hop or, you know, basically Black culture related music. And then more recently, they've taken a more global inclusive approach in terms of replacing the word of world music to, I think it's like global music. And although the nuance is it to me, it's quite slight, but I think that's just, again, this is just once you are informed about how this language is, you know, you're taking away the colonial impact of certain language, right? And making more conscious choices to be more inclusive in how you're phrasing things. It's just tough work, and we're all working on it. We're all doing it. And we're a lot of us are going to get it wrong a lot of the times, you know, but I think it's that striving, it's like the aspiration. As long as we have that as an aspiration to kind of do better, then we'll continue to see like these micro changes that will add up to like larger changes over time.
Absolutely.
We just had that conversation with Queer Asian Social Club, kind of like the small language changes and then how they kind of tie back to like colonial roots. But there's this like great podcast called The Queer Arabs. They're like super dope.
Yeah, we had them on.
We had them on.
Oh yeah. I love them. Aren't they the best?
They are so good.
Yeah.
So fun. Okay, so I remember talking to them like a while back, and they had kind of mentioned that there is a shift in the ways in which people are identifying from like what we know as the Middle East. And so folks have been choosing to use the term Southwest Asian as opposed to the Middle East as a way to kind of be like more geographically correct, because like Middle East to what?
Right.
And then also like because the terminology of Middle East carries with it so many like colonial connotations. It's like and it also kind of like very specific identity kind of connotations, where when you think of the Middle East, typically, like at least for myself, like I'm like, oh, Islamic culture, when in reality Southwest Asia has like such a vast and beautiful variety of cultures and identities. And so this person kind of like, you know, sent us a DM and was like, hey, have you thought about like using Southwest Asian instead of Middle Eastern? And we're like, oh no, but like this is like a great point. And one of our team members is Southwest Asian themselves, and so Leo and we had this whole conversation about it, and it was like, hey, some folks are using this and we want to use it as well to be as inclusive as possible. And we also recognize that identity is such a personal journey. So like if this doesn't resonate with you, then that's like fine. Like this is your own thing. We just want to try to be like more inclusive. But I don't know, it's such a fascinating and like, I don't know, it's an important conversation and it's like so messy and it's like all over the place, but like a constant journey.
And quick shout out to Alicia and Nadia from Queer Arabs. I mean, we had like such a blast.
Hey, y'all.
You got like
Auntie, Auntie Smoothie and Auntie
Vodka
Gummy Penguin.
Gummy Penguin.
Vodka Gummy Penguin.
Who was Vodka Gummy Penguin?
That was
Nadia.
It was Nadia, Vodka Gummy Penguin. And then Alicia was Vodka Smoothie.
Amazing. I love it.
But you know, that's like one of the benefits of these kind of like queer POC podcasts. You know, it's a very small but interconnected community. You know, and you know, just the fact of you like connecting with the queer Arabs. You know, it's indicative of how pervasive we this platform can be for like our community and providing a platform for like these kinds of dialogues to happen and provide some education for people.
Absolutely. So before we get out of here, tell them where they can find you. Like, where can we find you? Like all of your platforms.
Oh my God. There's too many things I'm doing. I need a nap. So you can find me on Instagram at Maya S. Ruddy. And then you can also follow the Queer Asian Social Club on Instagram at Queer Asian Social Club. And then on Twitter, Queer Asian Social Club is at the QASC. Although we're definitely more active on Instagram because I don't understand social media. And then you can find me on Twitter at Maya Reddy, and I'm usually tweeting about the Baby Yoda show.
Yes, I love how you call the Baby Yoda, not the Mandalorian, the Baby Yoda show.
Oh, come on. That's what it is. The true star.
So fucking good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, like, Dawon, what you were just saying, just being able to hang out with y'all this evening has felt so amazing and so wonderful. And I don't know, I've definitely been craving, especially in quarantine, have been like, oh, I miss just being with other queer people of color.
Right?
Yeah. Like, I just miss, it's just so nice to be able to be like, God, it's hard sometimes. Like, it's exhausting. But it's just, so I don't know. It's been, I'm just obsessed with y'all, and I'm so glad to know you. And
you're welcome.
I just feel like this was like this huge hug. Like, I just want to hug all of you in non-COVID time. But yes,
it's like, let me get my mask real quick. Hold on.
Right.
But community, hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Hopefully your week is going well. And wash your hands, wash your legs, wash your ass. And we will see you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.